A USA Today investigation is examining alleged retaliation against whistleblowers within police forces across the country. In its Behind the Blue Wall series, the newspaper looked into the stories of police officers who spoke out against their departments. Reporters studied more than 300 cases that spanned the past decade, and they found many police departments had allegedly adopted an unofficial system of retaliation against whistleblowers, including death threats and destroyed careers. So with more on this, we're joined by Daphne Duret. She is an investigative reporter for USA Today. Thank you so much for joining us, Daphne. I hate to say this, but it doesn't come as a complete surprise to me that whistleblowers face retaliation, but we are talking about career destroying, in some cases, mental health destroying retaliation. Go through it for us. Break down what your report found and how are in the many different ways that whistleblowers are targeted and punished.
Good morning, Anne-Marie. And you're right. It's just as you said, that it's not a surprise to a lot of people that officers who speak out against the misconduct or make misconduct claims against other officers are often targeted, demoted, fired, intimidated, and all of that. But I think one of the things that we reported and what we found in our research was that the ways in which this retaliation happened was so uniform across the board. We found the same types of retaliation happening in big cities and in rural areas. We found that male officers, female officers, Black officers, white officers, officers of different religions, officers of different ages, all face the same types of retaliation, almost sometimes hearing things verbatim from their peers and police chiefs and other people in the system. So I think one of the things that our investigation revealed was how systematic some of these patterns are.
Give us a little sort of an example. And you may not have. I don't want you to use sort of specific officers, but I want people to sort of understand the way in which someone could be pushed out of a police force because they came forward to talk about bad behavior that they witnessed.
Yeah, so the kinds of retaliation and intimidation we found stretched way beyond just, hey, you reported on this or you talked about this and you're fired. Some officers in some cases were reassigned to less favorable shifts. There's going to be a story that we have coming out next week where one officer was assigned to pick up roadkill after he reported on the misconduct of the chief in his area. And so those are the types of things just beyond firing or demoting that happens. Some other things that we found were that other officers intimidated the officers that came forward, including making death threats against them. We had one case where an officer had a fellow officer who'd been friends with him for 20 years. And once he found out that he came forward, he said, "Hey, if you link this back to me, I'm going to put a bullet in your head." And so those are the kinds of things that happen, not just the fact that these officers are shunned by their departments, but they lose a sense of community and the relationships that they built over a long time.
And, that's the other thing I wanted to get at. The officers that you spoke to and your team spoke to, did they talk about the long-term impact? So, say they're pushed out of a police department. Are they able to get another job in another police department? Do they even want to stay in law enforcement? What are the long-term implications?
The long-term implications are pretty severe. And one of the things I want to make clear is that what folks told us in our reporting, experts who have looked into this, is that the point of the code of silence is that we'll never know the full extent to how it affects officers. But for the officers that we've talked to, it's ruined marriages, people have developed addictions, there's been a ton of police officers who have gone bankrupt even trying to just fight against the police departments that they feel targeted them in the court system. So these do have long-lasting implications. As far as for whether or not the officers involved want to stay in law enforcement, it depends. For example, I've talked to officers within the same department where one will be completely done with law enforcement and the other will miss it and want to come back. Just last night, I was on the phone with a police officer who was in tears and told me that he missed his job and he really loved being a police officer. He loved serving the community, and he thought that he would be rewarded for exposing corruption within his department, but that's not what happened.
I want to ask you about police unions too, because whenever we have this conversation about reimagining public safety, some people say defund the police, it's more reimagining public safety, the issue of police unions and the role that they play always come up. What did you uncover in the way police unions handle whistleblowers, because their job is to also protect the whistleblower?
Well, and there are cases across the country where they have done that. There's a case in our data set where a police officer in New York reported on a quota system and the union backed him in that regard. There are other cases that we reported on where the opposite happened. There was a case in Connecticut where a police officer spoke out and cooperated with the federal government against some of his fellow officers. And one of the officers that was involved allegedly put a gun to his chest. And after that officer went to prison, he was able to obtain a paid position within the police union in that area. So
wow.
What we see across the board is it's not uniform, but we do see cases where the union often will back the officers who were accused of misconduct over the officers who reported the misconduct. And that's what we reported in our story that ran recently.
Have any of the police departments that you guys looked into or the police unions responded to the investigation?
Yes. And what we've done is when we've talked about police departments in our series, we always reach out to the departments and get their thoughts on things. I think the most typical response that we have received from these individual police departments is that they don't believe that the whistleblowers involved are actually whistleblowers. And I think we've heard several times that, the police departments or the people in positions of power believe that these whistleblowers only spoke out when they themselves faced trouble for other unrelated offenses that they might have committed. So that's the most common response that we've seen from departments so far.
Wow. This past summer, in a letter, dozens of police officers called on Congress to pass protections for police whistleblowers. Mm-hmm. What more do we know about, how lawmakers are addressing this?
Well, we're going to be talking about that in an upcoming story for the Blue Wall series that we have at USA Today. But just to give you a preview, we know that with the George Floyd Policing Act of 2021, before it stalled in Congress, there weren't really any whistleblower protections in that bill. And so there are some efforts now, I think, to get some police whistleblower protections into Congress, but those efforts are still developing, and it's unclear now what will happen.
All right. Well, it's a fascinating investigation. I'll keep track of the many parts that are yet to come. Daphne Duret, thank you very much.
Thank you, Anne Marie.